Hello, and welcome to this webinar where I'm going to be talking about if you are a leader or a manager and how changing the perspective on that can help you both in your personal development. So, if you are seeking a promotion at work, career growth, business development, in so many ways. Obviously, we all have to work operationally, but we also, more importantly, when we're in a position where we can make a difference in managing others, we need to lead. And so I've put together this webinar, which has got some strategies about how you can think about that and how you may be able to make some changes to what you're doing now to move the dial forward for you. So, who am I? I'm Denise Matthews. I'm a career coach, and since 2006, I've also been an executive coach. My own background is experience in large organisations, and I've also had my own business along the way. I've worked with SMEs. I've set up SMEs for other people as operations manager, things like that. So I've got a really, really diverse portfolio of industry background, very much in customer facing roles, so retail, recruitment, those sort of businesses. And in my executive coaching role, those are the type of people that I love to work with, where customer is right at the front. That's a really sweet spot for me. And in careers, I work primarily with senior people who are already managing teams, right through to CEO level. I've navigated some successes. I've had a couple of absolutely fabulous successes, and I've also had some disappointments. And again, I think that makes me really well qualified in supporting people who are on a growth journey themselves. I'm also a mentor with the Association of Business Mentors, and I enjoy working voluntarily on the Help to Grow programme, but also with the ABM as a business mentor. So that gives you some background to myself. If you're not yet linked in with me, please do click on the QR and let's get connected and let's get talking. So, why are you here? For most of us, when we get to management level, we've been on multiple courses. We've got lots of leadership books, often quite dusty on the shelves, not really doing very much. How many of those have you got in your bookcase? Because I can assure you, I've got loads. And some of them I've got more than once because I'd actually forgotten I'd even bought them. And now I've also got them on the Kindle and I've got them on Audible. And still, I don't read them cover to cover. But I do love to dip in and out and find things that are going to help me with the challenges and things I've got. But most of the people I work with, they've all been on courses, they've got lovely, beautiful, crafted workbooks, and they've come back from the course and it's gone in the cupboard and not very much just happens after that because operationally life takes over or something changes at work and all of those things. So you've probably got a lot of tools in your kit bag that you're not using. And one of the things I want to talk about is your style of leadership. Are you counterproductive in your leadership? You know, what are your strengths as a leader? What type of leader are you? And also, what's your preference? Because we've all got different ways that we like to lead. And that is something that it's too big to talk about on this discussion today, but it's certainly something for you to think about and take away when you come to do the reflective work. There's a really good summary of leadership styles, which was I think published by McKinsey, I think. And they describe it as there being four key styles of leader. And we start out in our early careers, usually as a micromanager. We know some people never get over that. I'm sure like me, you've been the victim of being micromanaged along the way and the frustration that brings. But in early days, we usually micromanage. It's a great starting point in some ways because we're frequently checking in. We make sure that everything's being done that we think should be being done, and we make sure it's been done in the way we think it should be being done, rather than letting other people lead it in their way. Or sometimes people start off as a helicopter manager where they don't want to bother people all the time, but then they dive in and dive bomb and, throw loads of things at people and, change accountability levels and really confuse the issues by spasmodic check-ins. So both roles, both styles of leadership involve have quite like high involvement, and it can be very confusing, and it actually leads to a lack of accountability in the team. And it also means that the manager ends up with far too much to do and they just become overloaded because they're not letting capable people get on with it or spending time teaching them how to do it in the way it's meant to be done. Then the next stage that people often move to is that cheerleader, someone who can step back, pop into the situation occasionally, occasional team meetings, um, believes in positive empowerment, lots of energy and drive, and chooses people that they think or believe have the capability to take decisions. And it actually frees up the cheerleader manager to go and do a lot of what they want to do without worrying about the detail. This can be a really dangerous style of management. It can work in certain situations, but if there's not enough involvement with your team, and if they don't really know the levels of empowerment they've got, and you'll give them the ongoing support, it can swiftly fall over. The most successful management style, which I think most of you, as leaders yourselves will recognize, is the role of a coach manager. Something where you're hands-on to a certain degree because you know what the expectations are. You've set those, you've given guidance, you've set the journey path for where that person needs to be and what they need to deliver. But you're not directive. You are allowing people to think for themselves. You're not telling them, you're guiding them. And just like a Sherpa would guide you up a mountain, that's exactly what you're doing for your people in allowing them to find the rocky moments and helping them to overcome those. It needs development to get it right. There are different levels, and sometimes that coaching role can work at a different level for different people in your team. But think about how you manage and also how you're being managed. And is it, the coaching role where you allow people to have the confidence to try new things, and you are also managed in that way that you are allowed to try new things and get the support to go on that journey to growing your capability. So there are a number of pitfalls in leadership which I see all the time when I'm working with my coaching clients or my career development clients. These are things that I see are, stopping people from growing and stopping businesses from progressing. All of these things are, they're out there every single day. Firstly, that absence of a clear day-to-day strategy. Does your team and do you know the journey? Do you know what the destination is of all the things that you're trying to do? Is there a long-term vision, or is there a vision at least as far out that you can put strategies in place that have been agreed with your line manager or with your CEO, or you've put in place for your teams? How clear is that strategy? Does everyone know where the journey is going to? And people will embrace that journey at different levels, dependent on their own interests, capability, commitment. But everyone should know the destination and be, really invested in getting there. We've talked about micromanagement as a management style. It's a leadership pitfall. I've been there, and I'm sure you've been there as well. I've actually been that micromanager. I was only 19 to be true about it, but yeah, when I think about it. But it was a member of staff who told me what I was doing, and it really, I've never forgotten it. I've never forgotten her telling me. It really has stuck very clearly in my mind the day someone gave me feedback that the way I was managing her was not going to get the results. So I still thank Vi to this day for telling me that I needed to change things if I was going to get the job done. It was a really valuable lesson. Not, balancing what we need to do today and thinking about how is that going to get us what we need in the future. We've got to be future focused. It comes back to the strategy. We've got to be future focused all the time. We can't just be living in the short term. And when things are tough, it's so easy to fall back into panic mode, just doing what's got to be done to get through the day, get through the week, get through the month. But you've got to know what is the future, both for the business growth and for the growth of your talent and the people in your team. I see people that are really frightened of innovation. They're stuck, we've always done it this way, there's no reason to change. Well, there probably is a reason to change, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But fear of innovation can be a real negative in, good leadership. Failing to prepare, just living dangerously and just hoping it will all come okay in the end. Well, if we do all of this, something's got to work. I was thinking that too. And as we've come out of a really difficult time trading, following lockdown, etc., we're still only just getting out of it in lots of industries. So we need to be prepared, because otherwise we are putting ourselves in a very vulnerable position. And then the biggest one of all, and the one that affects you, your teams, your customers, absolutely everyone, is poor communication. Because if you don't get communication right, you don't get understanding right, you don't get buy-in right, you don't get training right. Everything about communication is absolutely crucial. So I'm going to start with that in this part of the presentation. So alongside communication comes collaboration. There's some amazing data and information that shows communicating well in teams in a collaborative style really, really makes a difference to the outcomes. So you start off by communicating that clarity on your goals and your expectations, so that everyone involved in a project, in a journey, in a new business, in the development of a sector, whatever it's going to be, is that everyone understands what the goals and the expectations are. There are some amazing stats from people like McKinsey, Anderson's, Price Waterhouse that prove that collaborative working increases your business success rate by up to 71%. I mean, that is an astonishing number. And how can you afford not to think about collaboration under those circumstances? And of course, one of the challenges we have is that now we have a hybrid working model in most businesses. In some businesses, they only come together once every 3 months. How do you make sure that collaborative working is truly happening in the best possible way when you're not all together? It is possible, because I see it in some businesses, but you've really got to plan for it. And you've really got to get the team to buy into it and to do all their various parts and then come together in a way that suits everyone. I think that cannot be underestimated. This other stat, communication and team working leads to better decisions with an 87% improvement on outcomes. This was a study by Harvard. It's got really good grounding to it. And I think it's really, really meaningful and should stop us all in our tracks. It certainly did me. So collaborative teams, 5 times more likely to overperform. And staff retention increases by 20% in a collaborative culture. So The learning from this is creating a structure which is collaborative, and a team who know the goals and expectations will enhance your leadership outcomes astronomically. So without a doubt, I think it's something for you to think about and to, really map out how that collaboration is working for you, with you in your business and your team. Empowerment. Are you empowered? Really? Are you really empowered? And are the people who work for you empowered? Do they know the level at which they are empowered? Do they understand it? We need to develop our teams so that they've got the capability to take decisions that we delegate to them. And obviously, it depends on their level and depending on the scope of things, that will change with various, areas of the organisation. But let's say that, it isn't necessarily a big or a complicated decision, but it's one that happens frequently. So cumulatively, if it's not done well, the impact can be, pretty damaging. So you need to be sure that your team know the parameters of their decision-making abilities, and give them the authority and the tools and your support and guidance, so that, they are able to go forward and do it well. If they've got clearly defined roles and responsibilities in terms of delegation and decision making and forward planning, that will make it much more successful. So no working on the fly, it's got to be well thought out. Delegate appropriately. Is it the right person? Are you really sure about that? Have they given you the confidence and the evidence to show that, yeah, they're up to taking this? Maybe it's someone who is a team leader in a contact centre, and they're recruiting support members for the phones. What level can they recruit to? How much can they go outside the salary bands? What are the must-haves each of those candidates are going to need? What's the process been? Has the process been followed? If there are questions, what's the upwards trajectory that they need to go through to discuss it? What are the timelines? Be really, really clear that that's what they need to do. We've talked about identifying the management style. And I think the other part that I really, really value in this is that teams who work together and are, working collaboratively will sometimes disagree. And that's absolutely fine. I think make sure that you've allowed a really good window for discussion and trust, so that, you've taken the role of the coach and allowed people to have input, you've listened, and then out of it all, a decision has been taken by whoever is the right person to take that decision. And it could be a group decision. But the really, really important part after that is that you can disagree, but then when the decision is taken, the team commit. You might put a review period in, but actually you need to disagree and then commit, because that is how you will get the success. But if everyone's still grumbling away in the background without that commitment, it's not going to work. So, innovation, my absolute favourite. I have worked for some people who were incredible innovators. And I had to learn to really adapt working in those environments. Innovation gives a huge competitive advantage. It puts you ahead of the competitors, just really sets you apart, and it means that you can respond to change in the market, or you can be the change maker. I was incredibly fortunate to be working in Next, both in the early days when we only had 40 stores. We'd just moved across from when it was Kendall's Rainmakers, and George Davis had bought the business. And using his incredible talents from Pippa D, which was you know, a selling business, a selling from home business. He bought that and combined his skills, experience, and knowledge into setting up this new chain, and he called it Next. And I was in at the beginning, one of the early store managers. And then even better, I was the general manager when we launched Next Directory back in 1990, 1991. That project changed the shape of retail, and it all came from his head. He changed how we delivered. He changed the timelines of when we delivered. We moved from catalogues to online retail. It was a total USP. And many of the things that went into place in those early days when we set up the contact centre, they're still there today because they were grounded in really good decision making and delegated responsibility. So innovation can create a USP that sets you apart, and never stop thinking. As a leader, always have your mind open, always be leading. Remember that strategic and innovative leaders, you foster capability. I can truly say that when I've worked for leaders like that everyone around me has stepped up to the mark. The expectation was set. They brought people in who wanted to succeed, who wanted to take responsibility, and it did literally foster that culture of capability. And that is something that we should all be looking to do with people, because it's so rewarding to be part of a team where you've got a leadership that is fostering that capability culture. Innovation obviously drives innovation, creative thinking, drives problem solving, and keeps everybody looking forward. You're not going to get caught out. You're going to be a market leader if you're innovating, even if it's in small parts, if it's in small changes of process. So always keep thinking, keep taking those ideas forward, because innovation activity are truly the mindsets to drive continuous success. One of the things that can stop it is fear. What happens if I get it wrong? It holds innovation back. Be specific with what you're trying to do, and don't let the fear creep in. Use your multiple skills, experience, the talent in your teams to drive things forward and to get that innovation off the ground. Because that way your business will just go from strength to strength. Don't let fear get in the way. Let a bit of sense get in the way, obviously. Don't just do it at all costs, but don't let fear stop you moving forward. So isn't it marvellous that over in recent times, how diversity inclusion has become a natural part of how we run our businesses? We look to include, we seek to include, we are open to diverse approaches. And as a parent of a neurodivergent child and grandchildren, I think it's just absolutely brilliant. I used to be a trustee actually at the Dyspraxia Foundation, and next week it's Neurodivergent Awareness Week. So if you're interested, do go and have a look at all the tools they're putting out there to help the workplace support neurodiverse strengths and capabilities. Diversity inclusion brings people with completely diverse perspectives. And that's what I've loved to see when I've been working in these areas, is that if you've got a challenge, if you've got something that stops you being able to do everything the way everyone else does it, you just find a different way. And that means that decision making and capability can really be so powerful, because they come up with things with that neurodiverse thinking process that normally you wouldn't consider. So it's really powerful because they are adaptable. They think of new ways. It also drives improved employee engagement, because you can really widen your workforce, and you can learn how inclusive leadership will create a team that's much, much better equipped to navigate the challenges and attract new talent. It's really is a powerful tool for everyone to work with. So embrace it. My total favourite, continuous learning. If you follow me, you might know that I've actually retired 3 times. It always felt like a good idea at the time, and it never has been. And I've been swiftly packed back to work by my family, or just because I just got so bored. And part of that is because when you're not working, it's really easy to stop learning. And whereas I've always been an avid reader, follower of podcasts and blogs, and just listen to people, I'm an avid course buyer. It doesn't matter whether it's learning how to do something in the home, or whether it's something to do with leadership, personal development, my career coaching practice. I just love to learn. And yeah, I've got a lot of dusty books, but most of them have got some parts of them that I go back to all the time. Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway was given to me by a mentor back in 1990 or 1989. It's the most dogged book in my collection, but I honestly, it is one of my absolute favorites. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So if you learn all the time, and if you listen to people who stretch your thinking, you will become much more adaptable to change. And so all the things we've already talked about will become much easier because your mind is opened up. You make much better informed decisions, listening to everything that's happening in the market, listening to all the ideas. I mean, I think most of us would agree there's nothing new really in any area unless it's AI. But in terms of things like leadership and management styles, they're pretty much crafted, and the only thing that will affect them is technology. But if you've learned all of that and got that really well embedded, you will make better decisions. It fosters your innovation and your creative thinking. And it also means that you're constantly developing those around you. You're challenging the people around you to learn with you, to bring you ideas, all of those things. And above all, you will learn resilience, agility. You'll have the ability to pivot, adapt to the unexpected, and be so much more resilient if you keep your mind open to continuous learning. Do something every day. And sometimes that can be you journaling, and you learn from your own journaling practices. Not everybody likes to journal, but you might like to listen to a podcast. There's some amazing ones out there for every single walk of life. Listen, you might not agree, that's fine, but it will have moved your mind on. It will have given you a nugget of information, a different way of thinking, and that will all strengthen your leadership capability. And it takes you a bit more out of that piece of operational management of just getting the job done. It helps you to move on and be a really capable leader. So, number 7, how do you elevate you to be that person? Some people can do this on their own, but it's quite rare because we usually need someone to share ideas with, chew things over, put things into the mix. So it can be your line manager, it can be a colleague, it can be a partner, It can be an external person, a mentor, a coach. It's obviously what I do all the time. And so what you need to do is you start off by going on a journey of discovery about yourself. That can be painful, because you have to be true to yourself when you're thinking about the style of manager you are, how you're perceived, how you want to be perceived. Do you need to change anything, or is everything fine as it is? Are you going to get to your destination in using the same tools you always have, doing the same things you always have? That would be quite unusual. So you think about your current results, your current working practices, and you have a chat to some key individuals around you and do a journey of discovery about you. Some people might even do a 360, and do their exploration that way. And then you set yourself some objectives, some goals, some targets, and you think about where you want to be and what are the elements that are going to be in the mix to get you there. You do some deep dive, fact finding. What do I know? What don't I know? To go on this journey and to get to where I want to be and to behave in the way I want to behave, what do I need to add to my toolkit? Have I got that in one of those dusty books? Or do I need to go and learn it? Or do I need to, have someone else share their thoughts with me, to get the feedback that I need? So it's really important that you go through a fact-finding exercise, with some real honesty to yourself. And then you come up with a solution for how you're going to go on that journey. And it will probably be collaborative, because you probably can't do it on your own. It might mean that you've got to sign up for something, you've got to get somebody else involved, you need to mentor somebody and get their feedback on how it's going. You need to be mentored and get feedback on how it's going. All those things. You need a collaborative solution to get you to where you want to be. You can speak to your line manager and talk to them about the opportunities you see by improving your leadership style, or changing the breadth of your leadership, or what you want to do with your team. And you can share with them the gaps that you see for you and the individuals you manage, or the things that are missing in the big plan. And then you put an action plan in place. You put all the markers in. It could be a Gantt plan, it could be a Trello board, it could just be a sheet of paper. Whatever works for you, but write it down. If you don't write it down, if you don't put the timelines in, if you don't put your personal expectations in, it'll just be another dusty book on the shelf. You have to own it. You have to go back to it on a regular basis. You commit when you're going to go back to it on a regular basis. And if you're working with a coach, you make them completely aware of what your targets and guidelines are for how you want to go on that journey, so they can support you in the most effective way possible. Are you someone that likes to be pushed? Are you someone that likes to reflect and think about it for yourself? Are you someone that sometimes likes to move from being mentored to being coached, or coached to being mentored? Whoever's helping you, make sure that all those parameters are in place, and then just get out there and do it. Implement your ideas, review them, and constantly evaluate them, so that you know that you're on that journey. So that concludes all the details of the webinar. These are a couple of testimonials, because I think it's always lovely to share some nice words. As you know, I am a coach and I work with people in different capacities. These are two people that I worked with, a head of IT who really thought he wanted to leave the business, really unhappy at work, all those things. In actual fact, we reframed some of those thought processes. We looked at what his broader involvement was in the organisation. How could that be improved? We looked at his team. What could they do to take away some of the grind that he didn't enjoy? What did he need to learn to become better at some things? And he's made some absolutely fabulous changes in his role and is very, very well settled in that organisation with no need to move on and not even a massive title change. So really working it through step by step can be very powerful. And then the lovely Dawn Butler, she's got an international business, and I work with Dawn on her business goals, her leadership style, and on all the elements that make her a success and an absolute whiz. She makes special equipment for cake makers, and she really is a very special lady. She's called Dinky Doodle Designs, and I've worked with Dawn for a few years. So that gives you some sort of just quick flash feedbacks of how people find working with me. If you'd like to talk to me about working with me or just to have a chat, having looked at all the detail on the webinar, just scan this QR code, or you can go to my website, which is at the bottom, www.elevatecareerscoach.com, and you'll see the contact page in there has got a link to book a free, no obligation call. In the main, people leave that call with at least one idea, one thought that they didn't have before we started chatting. And I do love to talk with you and hear about the challenges and the aspirations that you've got for yourself and your career. So please do get in touch. I would love to hear from you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to drop me a line. Any questions? I am absolutely delighted to help. Thank you very much.